Hello, welcome back to the InNOLEvation Mindset Podcast, powered to you by Moran College. My name's Liana, I'll be your host today, and I am with the wonderful Christie Hand. Christie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. That was a really lovely introduction. I don't know if wonderful is quite the word.
I think you're wonderful. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast so bad.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So could you tell us a little bit about just who you are and what you do at the Moran College?
Sure. I am teaching faculty 2 now. I've been at FSU since 2016. So I'm sorry, I had to think about that for a second. 2016, and we were over in the Human Sciences department or college at that time. And I was teaching visual merchandising, textiles. When they came to us and asked if we'd like to build out a retail program at the time, we were building out the Moran school. Mm-hmm. We said yes, and we got to redo all of our courses and kind of make it fit better, like update them and move toward more entrepreneurship than what the program had previously looked like, which was a really great experience for all of us. We were really on board. We worked really hard together as a faculty to build that out. And I think I've taught 10 different classes.
Wow.
So the textile classes, at least with the labs, visual merchandising, I had to do design 1 year, history of dress, social psychology of dress, supply chain, global sourcing. I'm trying to think. And next semester I'll be doing computer applications.
Fun.
I probably forgot something in there, but it's great. It's a lot of bouncing around for me.
Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea you were a Moran almost pioneer, like before it became a college.
Yeah, for the school. Dr. Fiorito came to us and had the idea for, at the time we had social entrepreneurship and commercial entrepreneurship, and she wanted to add in retail entrepreneurship because she's originally from our major, working in retail and merchandising and product development. So she just thought we would be a really good fit, and we thought it was a really great idea. So what usually happens with those merchandising product development programs at most colleges and at FSU too, is it's in with nutrition and it's in with exercise, or maybe not exercise, but family sciences. And that came out of a really old structure for home economics.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. So at a lot of colleges, it's still under that umbrella. And we were really happy to move it out toward more of a business-minded type program. We don't do a lot of the sewing and the building out of garments. We had to move away from that. We just don't have faculty that has the expertise in that. Our faculty has expertise in other things. Right. And there are a lot of colleges that we would be competing with that have much stronger programs for that. Like FSU would not be able, like our grads would not be able to go up against, FIT and SCAD and things like that. So we really wanted to narrow down our focus too. And as we say in entrepreneurship, do more of what you're good at and less of what you're not. So there's been a lot of shifts over the time that I've been here, but I feel like they're all very positive, and we continue to make shifts and update and change. And
I can totally see that. Like before I was in the major, I was very intrigued in the major. This was the only major that I actually cared about getting into at FSU. And at the time they were very, they kept talking about the tracks and like the was it the product development and the merchandising track? Do you feel like getting rid of that has improved like the program and like for the students and stuff?
I kind of liked the tracks myself, just because it was easy for the students to know what classes they were taking and easy for the faculty to work with their cohort. But I also understand that we've packed out the program so much that it wasn't giving students enough room to take things that they might have had an interest in. Mm-hmm. So we were sort of locking them into very specific classes. And a lot of people were saying, well, we'd like to try this and we'd like to try that. And college is the time that you're supposed to try those things. And so to give a little bit more freedom, they opened up those 2 tracks, and now you can kind of take a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, because I think if there were tracks, I think I would feel a little constricted too. I really like, I don't know a lot, well, I do now because I'm in the major and I know a lot about retail now, but I think going into it, I would have been like, oh my God, like maybe feel a little bit of regret of like choosing one and then not being able to do another one. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, it was a good move. It was kind of hard at first, but it was definitely a good move. And we continually evolve and change. And sometimes it is hard for our students because, they'll kind of be in the middle and now we're going to do this. And they get a little bit frustrated, but I think in the end it works out in their benefit. So change is always hard, but we're doing it all the time. And so is the world of entrepreneurship. So we got to keep up. And we're always trying to do what's best for the students, like what we think is going to be best for them as they leave us.
Do you feel like you just said, the world of entrepreneurship is always changing? Do you feel like you guys keep up well, or like what is a challenge for you in that sense?
I think that we do a very good job of keeping up, particularly for us in retail. I know that a lot of us came out of industry. Mm-hmm. We definitely have professors that have gone through and gotten their doctorate and gone that route, but a lot of us have come out of industry. And it's been years ago, and sometimes in academia, people get stuck. They just teach the same thing over and over and over again, mm-hmm. and it feels very stagnant. For us, we have to keep kind of our, on the pulse of what's going on, and read a lot of books, read a lot of articles. I've redesigned classes several times already, like getting a more updated book and looking at more updated versions. I think for us, COVID really mm-hmm. made a lot of changes for retail, especially after COVID. Yeah. So what is that looking like? And we all have to work really hard on keeping up with that. However it is, we're going to do that because we're not necessarily in the industry anymore, but we want to make sure we're giving our students the latest and greatest. So yeah, we definitely work together as a faculty and talk about classes that might be a little bit outdated or that maybe need new involvement in things. One of the hardest things for us now is looking at AI.
Oh.
And how that's coming in.
Yes.
And how students are using it, but how we need to use it mm-hmm. and sort of make it a part of our class. Like, we're not going to be able to fight it. It's not going away. So how can, if you can't beat it, join it. So how can we make that a part of our classes instead of being so concerned about, students using it and
right.
Yeah, it's uncharted territory, and it's going to take us a little while. But I sort of feel like we're always just as a person, I feel like I'm always a little bit behind with those trends. Mm-hmm. The students know them. My oldest son knows it better than I do, so I'm definitely trying to keep up. But we know it's there, and we're working with it. So
How do you? I know, like you said, it's very uncharted territory, and I think it's pretty scary when you see AI. That's the worst it's going to be. Does that make sense? Like, when you see it, like, this is the worst it's going to be. It's only like getting better. Yeah. That really scares me personally. How do you, what does implementing AI look for you, like, in your classes? Do you even know yet?
I don't really even know yet. I think for my assignments, I really try to ask students at this point, I've shifted to more personal, like reflection type pieces and things like that, so that they really have to stretch and use their own knowledge of what they've learned, so that it can't be just run through AI.
Right.
I've seen things run through AI, and sometimes it's just very off topic or it's not what we asked for. Mm-hmm. But I think in the future I can build out assignments that just do use AI, because it's accessible to all of us. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like. It seems to have come on really fast. It probably hasn't, but it just feels that way to us.
I think very fast. Yeah.
But people are getting the hang of it. So I'll have to figure out how to build some of that in, but also still keep like an authentic learning experience. Because if you just use that to get through college, when you get out into a job, you can't rely on that. You still have to have the knowledge of what was in the class.
Right.
So, or what you learned in college. It's useful for writing reports and things like that in your job, but I still want you to walk away with an understanding of what my class was about.
So, talking about the future and everything, is there something that you would like to teach that you don't already teach, or something that you would like to implement into the program?
I have had the social psychology of dress class kind of ready to teach in graduate form. So I would like to do that. I think that computer applications is going to be enough for me as far as new upcoming classes. It's not a new class, but it'll be new for me.
Right.
And that one's always changing too. So that will be, something new for me. Sometimes classes do get a little bit, like I said, boring, and but updating them always makes it better for a professor. It makes it more interesting for you and for the students. But I can't think of anything that I would be writing anytime soon. I think I will be going back into the textile labs, which
fun.
Yeah, coming up this year. So I really love those. I also, not only did I like doing all of the experiments, which there's a chemistry geek in me, so I really love doing that. But it's also small classes where you're working hands-on with students, and I really get to know them very well, like in a different sense than I would when I'm lecturing or something like that. So I miss that aspect of teaching, and I'm looking forward to going back into that lab.
Awesome. I'm going to transition a little bit to your life before teaching. Like what did you do, and how did that lead you to becoming a professor?
I never thought I would be a professor.
Really?
Never in my whole life. That was not the end goal. And really, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But I got my degree in history and business at Florida. Wow. And I worked in a restaurant through college. So I feel like I picked up a lot of management skills and customer service skills there, even though it wasn't really like a big job. Mm-hmm. And then I did get a job in retail, and I was working with Banana Republic, and I really liked it. And I thought, I'm actually good at this. And it was just working in a store, but I knew that I wanted to continue with that. I was a few years out of college, so it felt kind of odd looking at graduate programs and going back. I worked really hard to pass the GRE just, because I felt really self-conscious about going back at a later point in life. Mm-hmm. And I got into Georgia. So I went to the program at Georgia. It's textiles, merchandising, and interiors. And there, I just had the best experience, because before I went, I decided I'm going to take advantage of everything this program has to offer me. I think I had a really different mindset in graduate school than I did in undergrad. Undergrad can be really confusing and just a difficult time, like personally and socially and with school, and it's a lot. And I had a lot more clarity when I went back for graduate school. And so I don't regret going back at an older age either. And by older age, I mean 26. But
No.
I didn't go right out of college because it took me some time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I needed something like skills that were marketable. And history is kind of difficult to do that. Everybody's like, are you going to be a teacher or go to law school? And I was like, I don't want to do either of those. So I just really liked history. And when I was at Georgia, I worked for two professors in my assistantship. One did social psychology of dress and the other did history of dress. And I worked in the costume collection with him.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then I started working with a textiles professor. I went on a study abroad as the second instructor, and he was a really renowned textiles professor, and we, created a pretty good relationship, and he asked me to do textile testing for a project that he had on bamboo fabric for the Federal Trade Commission. Mm-hmm. So somehow he got me in the lab, and I was working on that. And then my major professor in my thesis was about merchandising. So I picked up all these different skills there, and I was super grateful for it because when I got out, I felt like there were so many different aspects of this, industry or area that I could go into. And the really odd thing was that I originally, way back in the day when I was going into undergrad, I was originally a chemistry major.
Wow.
And so I somehow stumbled on a place where I have the opportunity to use my interest in history and my interest in chemistry in the same field. I have no idea how that happened, but it worked out great. We graduated in 2008, which was the beginning of a really bad recession, and the job market was terrible. So I stayed with my job with Gap Inc. at Banana Republic and ended up there for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea where life would take me. I didn't really think I'd end up staying in Tallahassee, but you meet someone and you get married and have kids. And after that, I was kind of a terrible stay-at-home mom. I like to work. And I basically cold called the department here and came in and talked to Dr. Sherry Schofield. And it was funny because it wasn't a job interview. There was no job I was interviewing for. I was just trying to sell myself as somebody who has the ability to teach and has the knowledge and the degree and the want to do it. And a few months later, she came back and said, can you do some of these labs? And so I think I was a glorified TA at first, but it's just a matter sometimes of getting your foot in the door, because once that happened, it just snowballed from there. So awesome. I was really lucky, and it's such a great job as far as having the family and that kind of stuff because of the flexibility for all of us at my house. And so I love teaching. I didn't think I would, but I love it. I love getting to know the students. And I loved continuing learning about the things that I'm interested in and talking about the things that I'm interested in. And I really lucked out with falling into this job, if you will.
That's awesome. What would you say was your biggest challenge transitioning into being a professor and teaching?
My biggest challenge is probably getting over the anxiety or the feeling of imposter syndrome, something like that. I knew that I had the skills, but back then we had bigger classes. Because it was a different program. And I remember getting in front of 80 students for the first time, and I thought I was just going to pass out because I never, it's like a crash course in public speaking. Here you go. And, making sure that I was sharing the information that was valuable and meant something, and that it wasn't just fluff, that they were learning what I really wanted them to walk away with. So finding that focus in every class, then figuring out how to relate again to college students. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fun. But eventually there became this comfort level. I'm not a good public speaker. I'm an introvert, and I don't think that I could have done that, honestly. But now I'm so used to it. I feel like I could get in a room of anybody and talk about things, especially when it's things that you really enjoy and are passionate about. So,
right. I will say, I think you're a great public speaker. I'm serious. I've had this conversation with my friends who have also taken your classes. Well, first of all, I was like, I'm going to get her on the podcast. I want her on the podcast. But I think we've all collectively felt like your classes are very, I take in what you're saying because you explain it well, and you are, I don't want to say it feels like your friend is talking to you, but it feels more personal than just relaying information, which I think is great.
I think I had to do that because at first I was really trying to play the role of what I thought a professor would be like, or what my experience, I guess. It's not that I didn't know, but it didn't work for me. And when I get a little bit, nervous or whatever, I make silly jokes and that kind of stuff. And then I just went with it because it felt so much easier for me to be authentic than it was to try to be something else. And that probably took a little bit of time to understand that was also okay. Right. If I went off on a little tangent, or I told a little story or something like that, that was okay. Most of the students find that a little bit refreshing as far as, breaking up a lecture just slightly.
Yeah.
Making sure you don't go too far on the tangent and bring it back, or sometimes using a personal experience to explain whatever topic we're talking about is also helpful. Just make things a little bit more relatable for people. So again, I was sort of self-conscious about that when I started moving that direction, but it's just so much easier for me to talk to people when I feel like I'm literally just being myself.
Yeah, and it works. So. Is there anything that you wish Moran students knew, or any advice you could give them?
I would give them the advice to try anything. Sometimes I have students that have gone on their internship and they come back and they're like, that's not what I want to do. But I think that's just as valuable to learn the things that you don't want to do as it is to, succeed at the things that you do want to do. And right. I'm sure in entrepreneurship, it's discussed a lot that your failures are really important because you don't learn from your successes in the same way that you learn from your failures. And I don't mean that I want my students to fail, but there's so many things that can be done with this degree. There's so many different aspects of the industry or of starting a business or just knowledge that they walk away with, and being flexible. So take that job or start that business, and if it doesn't work, make another decision and shift gears. We have the time to do that. We're no longer in the period of time where we used to lock into one job and that was what you did your whole life. And that's really good because, I don't think that sounds like a fun life to me. So trying things, moving around, bouncing around, seeing what works and what doesn't, and realizing that you're not stuck. You have so many things to fall back on from this degree.
Thank you so much for joining us today at the InNOLEvation Mindset Podcast. For you guys tuning in, Please like, please subscribe, and tune in for more episodes.